In the heart of Africa, where the land is painted in shades of red earth and green savanna, where the rivers sing songs older than memory and the wind carries whispers from the ancestors, there lived two villages divided by a river. For generations, this river was not just water flowing between banks, it was a line carved deep into the hearts of people. On one side, the Ndlovu people lived, on the other, the Kioni. Their grandparents, and the grandparents before them, had passed down stories of betrayal, of land stolen, of blood spilled when pride and vengeance ruled the land. Every child was raised not with tales of peace, but with warnings about the other side. They are not your brothers, the elders would say. They are your enemies. Yet, as seasons changed and new generations grew, the weight of this inherited hatred began to feel heavy, like a burden too old to carry. The young men and women of both villages lived in the same climate, under the same stars, struggling with the same hardships of drought, poor harvests, and fading traditions. Their laughter sounded the same when they were alone in their huts, their dreams of a better life were no different, but when their elders watched, they wore the armor of division. In Ndlovu, a young man named Cato sat by the river one afternoon. The sun cast long golden rays over the water, and dragonflies danced in the light. Cato was strong, with shoulders hardened by work in the fields, but his eyes often carried a softness that troubled the older warriors. He had grown tired of listening to the same stories of revenge. His father would point across the river and say, "Those people dishonored our ancestors. Do not forget it." But Cato often wondered, "What have they done to me?" On the opposite bank, in Kioni village, a young woman named Asha collected water. She, too, had heard her mother's voice full of bitterness. "The Ndlovu took our land," her mother would say. "They are not to be trusted." But as Asha bent to fill her pot, her eyes lifted and, across the shimmering surface of the river, she saw Cato. For a moment, their gazes met. Neither spoke, but neither looked away. The river, once a wall, now felt like a mirror. As weeks passed, more of the younger villagers began to notice the sameness in their struggles. When drought struck, both villages prayed for rain. When disease came, both mothers wept for their children. And when laughter broke free among the young, it sounded no different whether it came from Ndlovu or Kioni throats. Slowly, without words, the younger generation began to see what the elders could not, that hatred was a chain, and they were its prisoners. One evening, a secret gathering took place near the old baobab tree, a neutral place that belonged to no village but to the land itself. Cato was there, and so was Asha, along with other young men and women from both sides. They looked around nervously, for if the elders discovered this meeting, punishment would be severe, but the hunger for change was greater than the fear. "We cannot live like this forever," Cato said, his voice low but firm. "We inherit their anger, but it does not heal us. It only keeps us apart." Asha nodded, setting her pot down. "Every season we fight, but we fight for nothing. We spill blood, but we gain no land, no peace, no future. What have we truly inherited but grief?" A murmur spread through the group. Young farmers, hunters, and weavers shared stories of how tired they were of the constant suspicion, the endless warnings not to trust the other side. One boy admitted he had a friend across the river, a secret companion he had met while tending goats. Another girl confessed she often listened to the songs of Kioni carried by the wind and thought they were beautiful, not threatening. That night, under the great tree, they made a promise. They would no longer be the keepers of old grudges. They would refuse to pass hatred to their children. They would build something new. At first, their rebellion was small. Asha began teaching a song from her people to a group of Ndlovu children, disguising it as just a melody she had heard on the wind. Cato shared farming techniques he had learned with a young man from Kioni who secretly crossed the river to help him till the soil. The more they shared, the more they realized that culture was not a weapon, but a gift. But the elders noticed. One afternoon, an old warrior saw Asha speaking to Cato at the riverbank. He stormed back to the village, rage boiling. "The young betray us," he shouted in the council of elders. "They mix with the enemy." The room shook with anger, and the old men and women swore this would not be allowed. "If they forget our pain," an elder said, "then who will honor our dead?" When Cato returned home that night, his father confronted him. "Do you shame your family by speaking with them?" he growled. Cato looked his father in the eyes and said quietly, "I do not shame our family by seeking peace. I honor them by trying to end their suffering." His father's hand trembled, torn between pride and fury, but the words planted doubt in his heart. The tension grew. The elders warned the youth, forbidding them from crossing the river. But the younger ones had tasted something new, freedom from fear, and once tasted, it could not be forgotten. They continued to meet at the baobab tree, sharing songs, food, and dreams. Then came the great drought. The river shrank until one could walk across its shallow stones. Crops withered, and animals grew thin. The elders urged their people to survive alone, to refuse help from the enemy. But hunger is stronger than hatred. One morning, Kioni mothers carrying empty baskets crossed the nearly dry river and entered Ndlovu territory. The elders of Ndlovu shouted, demanding they return, but Cato stepped forward. He opened his granary, offering millet and sorghum. Food was being shared freely across the banks, but the younger villagers followed Cato's example. Not the will of the elders, but the wall of separation. Hunger had shown the truth. Survival depended not on division, but on unity. Days turned into weeks. The drought continued, but instead of starving alone, the two villages worked together. Young men dug irrigation channels. Women shared seeds. Children carried water in long lines, laughing as they splashed one another despite the heat. The elders still grumbled, but they could not deny the strength that grew from unity. One evening, as the sun sank and the horizon glowed red, the young gathered once more under the baobab tree. This time, they brought their parents and grandparents. The old ones came reluctantly, leaning on staffs, their faces carved with suspicion. But when they arrived, they saw something unexpected. Their grandchildren playing together, their daughters grinding grain side by side, their sons building fires with hands from both villages working as one. Asha stepped forward, her voice steady. "We are not erasing your pain. We honor it. But we refuse to live chained to it. Let the river be not a border, but a bridge." Silence followed. The elders looked into the faces of their children and grandchildren. They saw the same fire of survival that had once burned in themselves, but it burned for unity, not vengeance. One by one, the old lowered their eyes, not in defeat, but in acceptance. The next season, when rains returned, the river swelled again, but it no longer divided the people. Together they built a wooden bridge across it, not just for trade, but as a symbol. On the day it was finished, both villages gathered, the young and the old. Drums echoed through the savannah, songs of Ndlovu and Kioni mixing into one harmony. That night, as the stars lit the African sky, Cato and Asha sat together on the bridge. The water rushed below them, carrying away the last remnants of the old hatred. Cato looked at her and said softly, "The river used to keep us apart. Now it carries us forward." And so it was. The younger generation refused the inheritance of hatred, and instead built an inheritance of hope. Their children would not grow up with war stories whispered in their ears, but with songs of unity sung at the fireside. They would know not the bitterness of vengeance, but the sweetness of peace. Generations later, the story of the river would still be told, not as a line of division, but as the place where a new future began. A future chosen by the brave hearts of the young, who dared to say, "We will not hate because you hated. We will love because we choose to."